My name is Michael James Carter, I'm 38 years old, and on March 15, 2025, I received information from a NASA quantum physicist that will completely change the way you see reality. For 12 years, I worked as an aerospace engineer on classified projects, collaborating with some of the most brilliant minds in the scientific world. I thought I understood the limits of physics and the frontiers of what was possible. But that day, I discovered that everything I'd been taught about dimensions, space-time, and the limits of our reality was just the tip of the iceberg. A senior quantum physicist, who worked for 23 years at NASA, revealed to me something the space agency has been hiding from the public for decades. There are only 3 proven ways to traverse dimensions, and all of them have been tested in secret. I was born in Houston, Texas, where my father worked as a specialized technician at NASA. From an early age, I was surrounded by scientists, telescopes, and conversations about astronomy. Science was the air I breathed. I graduated with honors in aerospace engineering from MIT, earned a master's degree in theoretical physics from Stanford, and at 26, was recruited to work on a top-secret project at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. I married Sarah, a brilliant astrophysicist I met during an international conference at Cape Canaveral. We shared not only a life, but also an obsessive passion for unraveling the mysteries of the cosmos. For 12 years, I lived what seemed like the pinnacle of my scientific career, working on projects that would never see the light of day. For years, I had been a typical materialistic scientist, believing only in what could be measured and tested in the laboratory. But in the last 6 months before that meeting, something had been bothering me deeply. Data that didn't add up, experiments that produced impossible results, quantum phenomena that defied all conventional explanations. I had begun to ask questions that my colleagues avoided answering. Why were certain NASA projects so compartmentalized? Why did world-renowned quantum physicists suddenly disappear from academic circles? Why were there billion-dollar gaps in the space agency's public budget that were never accounted for? I began to notice a disturbing pattern. Whenever someone got too close to certain discoveries about the dimensional nature of reality, that person was reassigned, silenced, or simply disappeared from the record. That Tuesday, March 15, 2025, began like any other workday. I was at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, reviewing trajectory calculations for a communications satellite, when I received an encrypted message on my institutional terminal. The sender identified himself only as Dr. K and requested an urgent meeting at a specific location, a discreet cafe in Altadena, 20 minutes from the laboratory. The message read, "Michael, you asked the right questions. Now you need the right answers before it's too late. 6:30 p.m. Come alone. Do not use your institutional cell phone." Normally, I would have ignored such a suspicious message, but there was something about the encryption code used that deeply intrigued me. It was a quantum algorithm I had only seen once before in documents classified as above top secret. At 6:30 p.m., I walked into the cafe. The place was nearly empty. There was only one man sitting alone at a table in the far corner. He was about 65, with completely gray hair, thin-rimmed glasses, and an expression that blended extreme urgency with deep resignation. "Michael," he said before I even sat down, his voice low but firm, "I have 72 hours before anyone realizes what I'm doing. So I'll be absolutely blunt. My name is Dr. Jonathan Kellerman. I worked for 23 years as a senior quantum physicist at NASA, on the most classified projects the agency has ever conducted. Projects that involved not ordinary space exploration, but dimensional exploration." He slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside were photographs of documents I should never have seen. Reports of experiments that officially never happened. Names of scientists I knew, marked with red stamps, transferred, access denied, or simply discontinued. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. "Because," he said, leaning forward, "I have terminal cancer. 3 months to live, maybe 4. And I refuse to die knowing that the most important truth in human history is being hidden by bureaucrats and military men who don't understand even 10% of what we've discovered." Dr. Kellerman took a deep breath and said the words that changed my life forever. "Michael, there are only 3 proven, replicable ways to traverse dimensions. Not theories. Not hypotheses. Tested, documented, and hidden methods. NASA has known this since 1987. And over the past 38 years, it has spent over $200 billion on black programs developing these technologies." He opened an old notebook and showed me complex diagrams, equations that made string theory look like basic mathematics. The three ways were discovered independently by different teams, in different decades, but they all lead to the same conclusion: dimensional barriers are not fixed. They are permeable under specific conditions. The first way, he explained, involves what we call quantum frequency disruption. Each dimension exists in a specific frequency band. Our observable reality vibrates between 7.83 Hz and approximately 40 Hz. During particle collisions at very precise energies, particles would disappear completely from our detectors. They weren't destroyed, they simply ceased to exist in our measurable reality. In 2003, NASA built the first dimensional frequency resonator in an underground facility in Nevada. When you place an object within this field and tune it to the correct resonant frequency, the object literally vibrates out of our dimension. We sent 43 objects through the dimensional barriers using this method. 17 of them returned, and when they returned, their physical properties had completely changed. The physical laws are different there. The second way, Dr. Kellerman continued, is based on the extreme manipulation of gravity through artificial gravity warp. When you bend space-time beyond a certain critical threshold, you're no longer bending within our dimension, you're bending across dimensions. When you spin exotic matter, matter with negative mass, yes, it exists, at relativistic speeds within specific magnetic fields, you create what we call a transdimensional gravity well. Gravity isn't just a force acting in three-dimensional space. It's a force that permeates all dimensions simultaneously. When you manipulate it to extremes, it becomes a bridge. He showed me a video dated August 14, 2007. In the video, a ring-shaped device began to glow with an intense bluish light, and then, in the center of the ring, something appeared that defied description, as if space itself were tearing apart. That dimensional portal remained stable for 73 seconds. We sent drones through it. What their cameras captured on the other side wasn't just another place. It was another set of physical laws. Another reality. Dr. Kellerman slowly closed his laptop. The third method is the most controversial and, ironically, the most replicable of all. It involves quantum consciousness projection. Human consciousness is not a byproduct of the brain. It is a quantum field that interacts with multiple dimensions simultaneously. When you place a human being under specific conditions, complete sensory isolation, precisely calibrated electromagnetic fields, and the induction of specific brain states, consciousness can literally shift out of our frequency dimension and tune into others. In 1995, we managed to train 17 individuals to do this in a controlled and replicable way. He showed me reports written by different people, on different dates, describing the same dimensional place with identical details. One of the consciousness projectors was my wife, Dr. Elizabeth Kellerman. In 2008, during her 47th successful projection, something went wrong with the equipment. She managed to return consciously, but her body had gone into multiple organ failure. She died 6 hours later. But before she died, she made me promise not to let this discovery be buried. You might be wondering, Dr. Kellerman said, why would NASA and other government agencies hide such groundbreaking discoveries? The official answer in classified briefings was national security and preventing mass panic. But the real truth is much more complex. In the 127 times we've successfully traversed dimensions, we've discovered that energy is infinitely abundant in certain dimensions, that physical death may not be the end of consciousness, that time is not linear in other realities. Imagine what would happen to the global economy if infinite energy were accessible, to religions if consciousness survives bodily death, to systems of social control if people knew that reality is much more malleable than we've been taught. The people controlling access to this information aren't scientists seeking knowledge. They're military men and politicians concerned with maintaining power. But there are also real dangers, he continued urgently. Of the 127 dimensional traversal attempts, 34 resulted in complete losses. And in 6 cases, things came back with us. Things that shouldn't be here. In December 2011, something went through the portal in the opposite direction. It took 19 days for us to send it back. He showed me blurry photographs of shapes that seemed to shift between camera frames, geometries impossible in three-dimensional space. That's the real reason this research is so tightly controlled. If this technology fell into the wrong hands, if someone opened portals without proper security protocols, It could permanently tear the barriers between dimensions. And we have no idea what that could unleash on our reality. So why are you telling me all this? I asked bluntly. Because total concealment is also dangerous, Michael. This research is being conducted by a smaller and smaller group of people with less and less oversight. And recently, in the last 3 years, the program has shifted from scientific exploration to weapons development. They're trying to weaponize all 3-dimensional traversal methods. The program has been hijacked by people who see only military applications. I believe that if this continues unchallenged, we will end up causing exactly the kind of dimensional catastrophe I mentioned. He handed me a tiny flash drive. Here are encrypted backups of documents, videos, experimental data. It's protected by quantum encryption that would take decades to break. Guard this as if your life depended on it, because it does. Don't connect it to any computer connected to the NASA network. Its mere existence is evidence. And when the time is right, when you have enough allies, when the context is receptive, then you begin to release this information strategically. Not all at once, but gradually, through channels that will lend credibility. Dr. Kellerman glanced at his watch. We've been here long enough. They monitor behavior patterns. Michael, you have a choice to make now. You can forget this conversation, destroy the flash drive, and return to your comfortable life. Or you can embrace this knowledge and accept the responsibility that comes with it. The latter will change your life completely, and not always for the better. Think carefully before you decide. But don't delay. This information needs to outlive me. And my time is running out. He left the cafe without a backward glance, leaving me alone with the flash drive, the photographs, and an existential weight I never imagined I would have to carry. I returned home that night in shock. Every fiber of my scientifically trained being wanted to dismiss it all as an elaborate conspiracy. But the documents were real. The signatures, the classification stamps, the experimental data, everything carried the weight of authenticity. Sarah immediately noticed something was wrong, but I couldn't tell her. Dr. Kellerman's words echoed, "The fewer people who know initially, the safer it will be for everyone." That night, I couldn't sleep, processing the implications. If it were true, and I increasingly believed it was, then everything I thought I knew about reality was fundamentally incomplete. Over the next 48 hours, I began discreetly verifying everything Dr. Kellerman had told me. I used my access credentials to search for references to the names he mentioned. Dr. Patricia Morrison, listed as transferred to unspecified administrative position in 2017. Dr. David Chen, discontinued from the program for personal reasons in 2019. There was more. Much more. I searched specifically for Dr. Jonathan Kellerman. His publications had abruptly stopped in 2002. In classified internal systems, there were entries, Project Threshold, lead researcher, until 2015. He was real. Everything was real. On the third day, I made my decision. I couldn't simply ignore what I knew. My life as a scientist has always been about seeking truth. I created multiple backups of the flash drive using layered encryption, hiding copies in different locations, a bank vault, another with an attorney under attorney-client privilege, a third in an encrypted cloud storage service. I began documenting everything in an encrypted journal. And I waited. 3.5 months after our meeting, on July 2, 2025, I received an internal notification from NASA. Dr. Jonathan Kellerman had passed away. The official cause: complications from advanced pancreatic cancer. But something was strange. When I tried to access any digital files related to Dr. Kellerman 3 hours later, they had all been moved to Historical Archives, Special Access Requested. His name had been removed as the author of dozens of internal reports. It was as if they were systematically erasing his existence from the records. That evening, I received an email from an unknown address, sent through multiple proxy servers. The message was short. He kept his promise to the end. Now it's your turn. E.K. Elizabeth Kellerman. Dr. Kellerman had arranged for this email to be sent automatically upon his death, signed with his wife's initials as a final message. Continue the work that cost us everything. Over the next few months, I began carefully identifying and approaching other scientists I suspected of similar knowledge. The first was Dr. Marcus Webb, an astrophysicist at Caltech who had published controversial papers on anomalies in cosmic radiation that suggested interference from other dimensions. When I approached him at a conference in Boston, he was relieved. "God, I thought I was alone. I have data that show unequivocal signatures of transdimensional interaction. But every time I try to publish, I get blocked by National Security Review." The second was Dr. Jennifer Cole, a neuroscientist at MIT researching altered states of consciousness. When I asked her if she had ever considered that the anomalous brain patterns she saw were consciousness falling out of phase with this dimension, her eyes widened. Thus, slowly, I built a network of 8 scientists at different institutions, all with pieces of the same dimensional puzzle, all being subtly suppressed, all thinking they were alone. In October 2025, I had my own first-hand experience. Working late one night in the lab, analyzing quantum interference data, I noticed an anomaly. I increased the sensitivity of the detectors, and the equipment began emitting a frequency I could feel more than hear. For exactly 3.7 seconds, I saw multiple versions of the lab occupying the same space simultaneously. And in one of them, there was someone looking back at me, a conscious presence, definitely not human, observing me with scientific curiosity. Then everything abruptly returned to normal. But I knew, with absolute certainty now, that Dr. Kellerman was right about everything. As our network grew, we began to encounter organized resistance. Dr. Marcus Webb was suddenly promoted to a position that took him out of active research. Jennifer Cole's lab was closed for security upgrades without warning. I myself began to notice surveillance, cars parked near my house, clicks on the phone line. The message was clear: we were being monitored. Dr. Kellerman had warned me that there would be public signs that dimensional research was advancing to dangerous stages. In January 2026, just 10 months after our meeting, the signs began. The first was the modern Tunguska incident. On January 14th, a massive explosion occurred in a remote area of Siberia. The energy released was equivalent to 15 megatons, but there was no radiation, no impact crater, no evidence of a meteor. The official Russian explanation was anomalous atmospheric phenomenon. But I knew better. The damage patterns, the way trees were knocked down in a perfect circular pattern, the residual electromagnetic distortion, all were consistent with a transdimensional gravity well that had collapsed uncontrollably. Someone had tried to open a dimensional portal and lost control. In February 2026, the disappearances began. These weren't ordinary disappearances. They were people, sometimes entire groups, who simply vanished without a trace. A commercial flight carrying 89 passengers disappeared over the Bermuda Triangle. It didn't crash, it didn't land, it simply disappeared from radar. A research team of 12 scientists at a station in Antarctica stopped responding to communications. When the rescue team arrived, the station was intact, half-eaten meals on the tables, but no human beings were there. To the public, they were inexplicable mysteries. To me and my network, they were evidence that dimensional experiments were being conducted on an ever larger scale, with ever less concern for safety. In March 2026, physical anomalies began to emerge that defied explanation. A granite block in a London museum suddenly became translucent for 17 minutes. Water in a Canadian lake temporarily stopped responding to gravity, floating in spheres in the air. To conventional scientists, these were bizarre phenomena. To me, they were signs that the barriers between dimensions were thinning. Reality was beginning to bleed between dimensions. There was something more subtle going on. People around the world began reporting spontaneous experiences of altered states of consciousness. Executives, teachers, ordinary workers all reported momentarily seeing other realities. Jennifer Cole told me, "It's as if the collective human consciousness is beginning to naturally tune into other frequencies." The events were rapidly increasing in frequency. In April 2026, our network received an unexpected contact. An encrypted email from someone identifying themselves only as Threshold_7, an obvious reference to Project Threshold. The message read, "You are not alone. There are others within the program horrified by the direction things have taken." What began as scientific exploration has become a dimensional arms race. 3 nations now have active dimensional traversal capabilities. None of them have adequate security protocols. There is something you need to know. On March 23rd, during a test in Nevada, something traversed back. An entity. We don't know what it is. We don't know where it is now. But it is here, in our dimension. You need to go public before it's too late. I spent 3 days verifying the authenticity of the message. The IP address passed through 47 different proxies. The encryption was military grade. And there were technical details that only someone truly inside the program would know. It was legitimate. Our network met in May 2026 to make the most important decision of our lives. Was it time to go public? The arguments against were powerful. We would be discredited, our careers destroyed, we could be arrested, or simply disappear. But the arguments for were even more powerful. The experiments were out of control, people were disappearing, and dimensional reality was becoming unstable. Dr. Marcus Webb summed it up: we became scientists to seek truth and serve humanity. If we don't speak out now, when the stakes are highest, then our entire career has been a lie. We unanimously decided to prepare a coordinated release of information across multiple channels simultaneously, making it impossible to suppress everything. 2 weeks before our planned release date, I received an unexpected visitor at home. It was Dr. Richard Phillips, who worked on Project Threshold from 2010 to 2023. I helped develop the artificial gravity warp drive. And I need you to know that I contributed to something monstrous. We lost 63 people, Michael. Not 34 as the official records say. 63 human beings who passed through dimensional portals and never returned. I have nightmares every night. We heard Dr. Alan Foster screaming from the other side in 2019. Not of physical pain, but of existential horror. And we left him there because we didn't know how to bring him back. He handed me a flash drive. Here are videos, audio, data that were never included in the official reports. The real suffering of the people we sacrificed. Use this. Show the world the true cost of this research. Now, in June 2026, 15 months after my meeting with Dr. Kellerman, I am about to do what he asked me to do: bring the truth to the world. Our network of 8 scientists, plus 3 whistleblowers from within the classified programs, has prepared a coordinated release that will be published simultaneously in 5 open-access scientific journals, social media platforms through hundreds of different accounts, decentralized servers impossible to take down, and leaked document sites with multiple redundancies. We will include classified documents, videos of experiments, testimonies from scientists, replicable experimental data, and instructions for others to independently verify parts of the research. We know there will be massive attempts to discredit us, that our careers are effectively over, and that we may face severe legal consequences. But we also know we can no longer remain silent. If you're watching or reading this right now, it means our disclosure has been successful. You're probably wondering, is this real? The answer is yes. And this changes everything. It means that reality is much more vast than we've been taught, that consciousness may not be just a cerebral process, that physical death may not be the end, that infinite energy may be available, that physical laws are not universal but local to each dimension. But it also means that there are real dangers we need to face collectively, not hide in secret programs controlled by a few. I'm sharing this story not to create panic, but to start a necessary global conversation. Should we continue to hide dimensional research in unsupervised black programs, or should we bring this to public debate with the entire scientific community participating? I believe that secrets of this magnitude are more dangerous than the truth, no matter how disturbing that truth may be. Dr. Kellerman gave his life silently carrying this knowledge. His wife died testing its limits. Dozens of others have disappeared or been silenced. I refuse to let these sacrifices be in vain. In the coming weeks, you will see one of 2 outcomes. Our disclosure will be quickly suppressed and discredited, or enough evidence will survive the initial discrediting and a real global debate will begin. Which scenario unfolds depends largely on you. How many people take this seriously enough to independently investigate, how many scientists will have the courage to publicly verify our claims, and how much noise the public makes demanding transparency. My name is Michael James Carter. On March 15, 2025, a NASA quantum physicist told me that there are only 3 proven ways to traverse dimensions, and today I am fulfilling that promise to ensure that truth survives. Dimensions are real. Dimensional traversal is possible. And humanity must collectively decide how to deal with these discoveries. If this message resonated with you, leave the word dimensions in the comments, subscribe to this channel for future updates, and share this with at least 3 people open-minded enough to consider extraordinary evidence. The more people know, the harder it will be to completely suppress it. The barriers between dimensions are thinner than you imagine. Reality is stranger and more wonderful than we've been taught. And it's time for all of humanity to know this. What will you do with this information now that you have it?